Blue Devils looking to get back on the winning track after Coach K's final game at Cameron Indoor. He was not happy. Spoiled by their rival Tar Heels. Coach K's final ACC tournament run starts tomorrow. Stephen A., would you like to see Coach K go out with a title?
I'd love it. I'd love it. I'd love to see him go out and win a national championship, because of what he's meant to the game, to be quite honest with you. And I think that it would be a phenomenal story. And this kid, Ben Kiro, I'm a huge, huge fan of his. He can really ball. I think he's got tremendous potential on the next level. But let's face reality. You got, when you're on top, a lot of people throw shade at you. A lot of people hate on you. And that's certainly been the case with Coach K and Duke. And there's been plenty of programs that I've wanted to win more than Duke over the years. I've always been a fan of North Carolina, particularly when Roy Williams was coaching them, but obviously, especially with the Dean Smith era, the Dean Smith days. I used to love Georgia Tech when they had Lethal Weapon 3, Kenny Anderson, Dennis Scott, Brian Oliver. I loved UNLV when they had Larry Johnson and Stacey Augmon and Greg Anthony and Anderson Hunt and the crew. I loved the Georgetown, the Hoyer Paranoia, the Bad Boys, 40 Minutes of Hell with Nolan Richardson and Corliss Williamson and the crew. I loved all of that, and I wanted all of those programs to win ahead of Duke, even when they had Grant Hill and UNLV, and they knocked off UNLV in the Final Four. I was depressed about that because I wanted UNLV to win the national championship with Tarkanian and the crew. But I would never diminish a scintilla of respect for the great Coach K and what he has meant to college basketball. And they wet the bed against North Carolina. They got smoked in the second half. They slept on Carolina because they blew them out at the Dean Dome a few weeks earlier, and they thought it was going to be a cakewalk, and all the pressure was on the kids because it's Coach K's last game at Cameron Indoor, all of this other stuff. But in the end, Coach K is great for college basketball. And for him to go out as a champion, to me, reminds everybody of what college basketball is supposed to be about. And I love that. And I hope Duke wins. I don't think they will. There's a few teams standing in their way now, and it is March Madness. But I think their chances actually improved now that they got smacked around by North Carolina.
I agree with a lot with what Reese said. I think that Coach K will have a very good ACC tournament, which begins for him tomorrow. Yeah. I did not like the way they handled it last Saturday. I'm embarrassed to lose to North Carolina. This is North Carolina. It's beaten Duke 45 times, and Coach K was unable. Now, you can make an argument that shows you his greatness because how much he was upset that he lost. Yeah. But Coach K was unable in that 15-minute gap before we got to the little rehearsal, the celebration, to separate the loss from his party. And he went to the microphone. He basically got on the crowd and everything else. That did not go over well in America because people looked at Coach K as almost like a sore loser.
Oh,
Mike, you won the ACC regular season. You're an all-time great. And I understand he was more annoyed about the loss, but he was a little rough. And plus, the coaches didn't shake Hubert Davis's hand on the handshake line.
Yeah, that's weak sauce.
And that was Chris Carrawell blowing him off like that. Those don't look at him. That's Hubert Davis. Yeah. He's a good man. That was not good either.
Yeah, and an assistant coach doing that.
Yeah. Two of them.
It's ridiculous.
Two of them. So I was down on that.
It's ridiculous.
Look at me. Come on. Even Hubert said, what are you doing? I just think that Coach K set a bad tone at the conclusion of that game. Now, I love him like you do. So I hate to even say this, but that was a big theme on the radio all week.
You mean when he shushed the crowd? And
I'm embarrassed, quote unquote.
He should have been.
He didn't lose to Wagner. He lost to North Carolina.
Excuse me. They just waxed him a few weeks earlier.
All right.
By the way, but I'll tell you where you're wrong about this. He should have been upset because they did that to the kids. They're kids, right? They're not grown professionals. They're not seasoned. They're kids, right? You imagine how much pressure was on them that particular game? That's more pressure than actually going out there and playing. It's his last home game and all the pomp and circumstance that came with it being Coach K's last. You could blame ESPN for Duke losing as much as you could blame the players. It's just the truth.
And that's why they won't win.
What do you mean that's why they won't win?
Because the pressure of winning games. How about if they're down at the half? In the round of 16, they're down 8-9 points. They're going to be so tight because they know it's his last game.
But I will tell you this. It was more, I think that, again, there was more pressure on them to win the last home game. Anything happens with March Madness. Anything can happen in the NCAA tournament. We know that. But you was not supposed to lose. You were not supposed to lose the last game at Cameron Indoor Stadium for Coach K to North Carolina.
It's North Carolina. You're making it sound like you lost to Virginia.
Listen,
Tar Heels.
North Carolina's 23.
They don't have to pick it back against anybody.
North Carolina's 23-8 this year. Hubert Davis is doing a good job. But let's face reality. This ain't the days of Vince Carter, Antoine Jameson, Raymond Felton, Kenny Smith, Michael Jordan, Sam Perkins, James Worthy, all of that. I mean, as long as even the days with Roy Williams win a national championship. This is not what's going on in North Carolina right now. You're supposed to handle your business if you're Duke in that last game.
Duke losing to North Carolina is not embarrassing. Under any circumstances, I don't care if Carolina's 5-20.
Circumstances.
They're 8 miles apart.
How you lost? Not that you lost.
Hey, you got beat. You live with it. You got beat.
It's an overtime thriller. It's sensational. That's different. When you get smacked around in the second half the way that they did, that's a different animal. They got outscored 55-40
I disagree. I completely disagree.
Come on.
I mean, you got to act. You know that. Hey, you got 15 minutes screaming, yell all day. The next day at the practice, kill your kids all night. Let them run suicides. When that game is over and you got 15 minutes to calm down, you go take the field again. You know what he made it sound like? It was beneath Duke to lose to North Carolina. And it is never beneath Duke.
People don't like Duke.
That's the reason. Nice job right there. That's because we're Duke and you're not.
Let me tell you something right now. Are you ready for this?
I am.
It was beneath Duke.
Oh, no, it is. No, it
isn't. Yes, not fair. That they lost the game.
No, it's not fair.
Look at me. In the time out. In the fashion that they lost. Again, you remember when Jerry Stackhouse catches the alley-oop and you got pushed games into overtime. You remember the thrillers. The only time the North Carolina Tar Heels have stunk up the joint is when obviously was it Matt Doherty or what?
Yeah, he was bad. Doherty.
He was horrible. He didn't need to be the coach.
After Guthridge left.
After Guthridge, right. So what I'm saying is, outside of that, it's always a thriller. Always. North Carolina, best rivalry in sports. You can book it. It's going to be a thriller. That was not a thriller. North Carolina smacked them around on the day that Duke. It was how they lost. And that was beneath Duke.
Fine, you don't scream all you want. He's got 15 minutes to calm down. You don't go out there and basically tell the fans, you know what, be quiet, I'm talking.
Excuse me.
You don't do that.
Excuse me, he's 75
He can do what he wants. He's Mike Krzyzewski.
He's not you. He's not me. He's 75 years old. He can't be raising his voice like that. He needed them to quiet down so they could hear him. What's wrong with that? It's not a crime. It's not a crime. It's not a crime.
Quote unquote embarrassed to lose.
He should have been. It wasn't.
That was
Let me be very clear. Duke should have been embarrassed by that second half performance. They should have been embarrassed.
They had a bad last 5 minutes. Let's calm down. They didn't lose by 40 in the second half.
Excuse me. They lost by 15. That felt like 40.
All right. They had a bad last 5 minutes. It was a 4-point game.
Like that. Excuse me. It's Mike Krzyzewski's last game.
And I love him. I hate to say this.
At Cameron Indoor, your team is supposed to play better than that.
Steve, North Carolina needed the game to seal an NCAA berth. That's number one. Number two, they're coming off a 30-point loss when Duke walked in there at the Dean Dome right after the Super Bowl and destroyed them.
That's right.
And they had heard about, that's a tremendous bulletin board scenario. Let's spoil Mike Krzyzewski's last game at Cameron. Those guys were wild, that North Carolina team. I knew Carolina. It was an 11.5-point spread. I knew Carolina was going to play well in that game. I said, there's no way that Duke's going to blow North Carolina out. Carolina lost by 30. They need the game for the NCAA tournament. They're going to be wild animals in this game. So how are you surprised?
You're not hearing me. I'm not talking about them losing the game. But you do not get outclassed, which is why...
Last 5 minutes, okay.
Well, Coach K didn't feel that way. He's the coach. He believes they got outclassed in the second half. Those were his words, not mine. And my point to you is that with that being the case, that matters. And then it's the last home game. It's the last game of my career at Cameron Indoor Stadium. And you go out like that in the second half, they would have been running suicide still. I still have.
Well, I mean, it's going to help Duke because Duke's now going to be playing great.
That's why
they're going to be. But I'll say one thing. This is where I totally disagree with them.
Yeah.
Duke in a tournament game against a good team. If they're in trouble in the second half with that freshman, or those freshmen who are good, but they're freshmen, when they're playing for his last ever game, they are going to be tight as you could ever believe. They are not going to win because of that.
I don't deny that. What I'm saying to you is this. I do believe this game, this loss, is going to help them.
I agree.
Because I think the kind of pressure they felt last weekend,
right. How about that?
courtesy of everybody, all of us are guilty of that. The pressure that they put on those kids, I think that having gone through that makes them better prepared for the tournament. I believe that.
I think it makes them better prepared. We can swim there to the Barclays. I think it makes them better the next 3-4 games. I don't know if
Guess
it makes
what?
them better
I
in
would
2
never
weeks.
advise
Guess what? I don't care
anybody
about
to swim
Barclays.
in the East River.
Yeah, that's
I
good
would
too.
never do that.
I care about what's happening at Madison Square Garden. That'll be the Big East tournament.
Big East.
That will be UConn. That's what I care about.
The
Okay?
Big East.
Oh,
Yeah.
please. It hasn't been the
Is
big-
Ewing gonna win a
It's-
game,
it's
by the
gonna
way?
be- No.
Still to come
No,
on
he's
First
not.
Take.
It hasn't
You're
been-
such